I'm going to jump right into the Agile part of Harada Method. And some of you, I'm not going to assume any prior knowledge, but I'm going to just share the elements that connect back to Harada. So the first thing I have to say is that Harada Method fits very, very well with what Agile stands for. And it is a solution to two reasons why Agile adoption fails. And before even that, let's go back to a little bit of a summary version. So Agile started in the software world and about 18, 19 years ago. And that time they discovered some fundamental truths about teams, how teams work, how high performance teams work. And during that time, they've evolved it from software to something that is encompassing the whole businesses. And we see time and time again, too much tool focus, too much focus away from people is the reason why it technically fails many, many times. So you probably have, for people who are from the Agile background, you may have seen this sticker. Two parts or two tenets of modern Agile is making people awesome and making safety a prerequisite. Now, when I say safety, it means psychological safety. And this is where people have autonomy to control their own futures, to live their best selves, to live each day as a masterpiece. And that's important if you create the guardrails and you provide the way to grow in that manner. Now, some people may say, oh yeah, it's just software, but software has eaten up the whole world. So it's a lot about how humans work and how they're not really just machines, and how we have to bring the whole human in and make them utilize to their best, to their optimal potential. I'm not going to read through each of the slides, but there's a lot of truth on who your customers are. And I love Norman introduced me to Inamori's work, where they say, well, I want to make sure that first the people who are working here, they are happy. And that's the first method. And then the next step is you design for your people first, not for your stakeholders, which is a whole different topic. But this is essentially looking at the human side of things. And how do we make people awesome? Give them the right tools, right conditions to thrive and grow. And I think this is where Harada Method is awesome, because it helps people to grow and choose their own futures and really, really stretch into new things that they've never tried before. If there's fear, if there's vulnerability that's been blocked, then we know that quite does not work in an Agile environment. So we want to not inflict Agile, but use that model to grow people. And Harada Method has that framework, has that rigor to make it happen. I'm going to step back to the software part of things. So this is a famous guy in the Agile world, and he's almost, like an Einstein, if there was one in the software development world. And he says, it's a pursuit of perfecting, not a pursuit of perfection. Because the moment you say you're perfected, you're not going to grow. The moment you say, yeah, I'm at the max level, you're not going to ever try harder. So this is where the coaching mechanism, in which I've seen grow again and again. Somebody, those external eyes and ears, who's going to take you from where you are and take you to the next level. And it's a lot about attitude. So Norman introduced me to this formula, like effort times attitude times skill, right, is what this formula, the magic formula is. But attitude is the big multiplier. So if you don't have the right attitude, forget about the other tools, but their multiplying effect is not as much. And there is a natural cycle of things. So some of you may have seen this. It's also from Japanese, and our Agile people love to use this around to describe teams. But remember, teams is also based on individuals. So it's kind of a looking backwards of those individual people and how each one of them have to be great. For a company or a team to be great, each one of you have to be great. So so these are like the mastery curve, the shu, ha, ri. When you are shu, you're just copying. When you're at ha, you're bending the rules. When you're at ri, you kind of form your own rules. And then go further than that, it just becomes very, very simple, or just mastering the scales, the basic stuff. Now, how does this tie back? So I want to take an example of one of my close friends, and an Agile coach, Steve Silbert, and I have permission to share this from him. He's an Agile coach and a sketchnoting expert. This whole visual facilitation has taken the world by storm. It is coming to boardrooms, but there's a very, very tough learning curve to be really, really master at that. So Steve, his portfolio on his website, I would encourage you to visit it. What's interesting is that he had a method to this madness. And although he was not using Harada method at that time, and he's not quite doing it, but I have touched base with him multiple times, and it fits perfectly well with the Harada method, which is find out who are the best people, right? Go on a research thing, make it into tiny, tiny aspects. He has a physics background. So drawing came very difficult to him. But he started with stencils. He would stencil, and people were joking, what are you doing with stencils? But from there, he kind of grew, he challenged himself more. So each one of those aspects, and if you're familiar with the Harada method, and I think many of you have attended these sessions before, there is a method to make those individual goals actionable on a day-by-day basis. And this is exactly how he developed. From where he is today, where he's tapped on the shoulder to do very, very complex Agile coaching as well as visual facilitation together. So he has evolved in a level from knowing nothing about it to being considered one of the masters in this particular art form. So I'm going to shift to my own example. So I've been working with Norm. I'm eating my own dog food, as they say, in the Harada method. So this is way back from 2018. And I'm not going to do a deep dive, but there's the mechanisms, the ideas of a backlog. And, there's 40 items in my backlog from the long-term sheet, but I only take 8 of them. And then I divide them up, I make them actionable. And the whole PDCA cycle, the inspect and adapt, is very much alive in the Agile world of things. So from a backlog to what I'm committing to a day-to-day basis to checking myself and working with a coach to improve, I've seen and I've reaped benefits from it. Just as an example, I just came back from China for a 3-month assignment, and it was mind-blowing, but I had technically prepared and made small chunks of things that I wanted to achieve towards the goal of maximizing my trip and maximizing my potential so I can grow in that trip itself alone. And Harada Method was a part and parcel in this whole journey. I'm going to stop here. So in Agile, we use the metaphor of fluency. Fluency is skillful ease, something you don't have to think about. And, given time and a whole lot of, if you had infinite life in a proper setting, perfect conditions, anybody can practice. But fluency requires deliberate practice, where you are doing things with routine, ease, even when your mind is distracted. And this is what Harada Method allows you to provide that focus on a day-to-day basis. And this is a statement by Martin Fowler. Another person I like to refer to is Anders Ericsson, who's considered the expert on expertise. And it is famously attributed to 10,000 hours, although there's some confusion on what that means. But deliberate practice is knowing what you need to do and how to get there. And without deep planning like Harada Method, it's going to be just wishful thinking, like those New Year resolutions that start in December and die in January, right? So this is what makes it possible to do it throughout on a continuous basis. So I'm going to stop here and hand it off to Christophe. So I'm going to stop sharing. Christophe, you can take over.